Drop.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.
Hello again, everybody. Can you believe it? First of all, it is the owner, the founder, the president of Power Pro Wrestling, Memphis Wrestling born, Memphis Wrestling bred, and when Randy Hills, by God, dies, I'll be Memphis Wrestling dead. I'm excited. Man, in one way and another, I'm miserable. The exciting part is summer's here. This is the last day of June of the year 2026. July is coming. Man, Richard Hood, man, Calvin, man, everybody watching this show, including Frank, everybody, we appreciate it very much. A very big last show of June we have for you today. Now, this show's featured idea is not a Randy Hills idea, but it is an idea of another Randy. He pitched the idea to me several weeks ago of having a subject of Memphis Wrestling's biggest nights. Memphis Wrestling's biggest nights. Now, it will be a 2 or 3 week series, and then at the end of this series, we will try to rank a top 10. I think it's unfair to do the top 10 right now before we get into looking at each cars. We'll try to get to as many as we can today. Crazy Gail Brooks is watching. Calvin Lindsay Jr. said his birthday is July 27th. He'll be 42 years old. Good God me. Michael St. John and Pat Trammell. I hadn't seen 42 years of age in a long time. But everybody, this will be a fun show. This will be a history show. We'll deep dive in the biggest nights of Memphis wrestling. We have some fun stuff to do too, believe it or not, with my wonderful, laughing, joking personality I always bring to you. I will be not only hosting this show, and I will be producing as well because Adam is on a work trip once again. It's first take time on this day before the first day of July. This is somebody that's always excited and always fired up when we talk history, which we do almost every single week. Before we bring in Pat Trammell, and he's on the screen now, but I'm going to open with the question because the last several weeks, you have been under the weather. You've been feeling bad. You've been looking rough. So Team Hills, our audience today, our great friends, Pat, wants to know how in the world is Pat Trammell today? And good evening.
Well, good evening. Good evening. I'm happy with myself. I figured something out that I needed desperately to be a good guest host. If I am a guest host, I'm fine. I'll tell you my saga. I have had sinus issues my entire life, and I think it's from growing up in a house with a 4-room house with a 5 pack a day smoker. Hey, Calvin, happy birthday to you to come. Hey, Gail and everybody, good to see y'all. But anyway, so 2 weeks ago, I had what I just call my sinus stuff, and one of the things I think that caused that was I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, working a trade show, and walking around and talking to people and all that. But anyway, that kicked me down for about a week, and then the Saturday before last, I went to a funeral and and just stood up out of a chair and threw my back out. So I fooled with that most of last week, and so but I'm back in the saddle. I went to the my hair cutter today. I had a beard none of y'all got to see, which you probably didn't want to anyway, but I'm going to keep my soul patch, so maybe you'll see that. But I am extremely excited about today. Um, we talked, Randy, you and I have talked about it off and on during the week, but I think this is particularly, and I think I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I think we believe this may be a two-part show, and just going through, the production sheets, which I just for everybody on's benefit, for every 2 hours we're on the show, I know that Randy works on, putting everything together, the videos, the topics, the questions, and everything else. And we generally have a couple of pre-production meetings for that. So, not for me, but Randy puts in much more work than you see on online. So just happy to be here. Happy to see everybody. Hello, Calvin, Richard, Frank, everybody, and look forward to tonight.
Now, you gave us a little tease, but didn't elaborate. I'm totally confused. You showed your phone and you said something about technology and you didn't explain yourself.
Well, this is what happens. Okay, Michael sent me 4 years ago, I guess now 3 or 4, to buy the the computer. This is my broadcast computer, and he was absolutely right. It does a fantastic job. For whatever reason, I can't get it to print on my printer here, and that's happened in the last 6 or 8 months. So what I've had to do is take our run sheet, put it beside, open it up and down. I've got, as you know, I've got a couple of businesses with a couple of different business phones. So I emailed the the show sheets, if I can get them on here, to my Choctaw email address, which is on this phone. This is the Choctaw phone, Choctaw telecom phone. So I put it on there, and now I have the run sheet right in front of me. So if I make a mistake, there's no excuse now.
All right, that explains that, and we got it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with Pat's opening remarks, we go to my man that made an appearance in Huntsville, Alabama this past Friday night for the debut that got Bo James grassrooted, promoted his you know what off in Huntsville, Alabama. Michael St. John did make an appearance there. I'm sure Bo put him to work, and I bet Bo didn't exactly break the bank paying anybody. But that's a wrestling promoter for you. That's a wrestling promoter. That's especially Bo James. First take time comments about this weekend, and on the last day of June, with this exciting subject of the greatest nights in the history of Memphis wrestling, we will bring in Memphis Wrestling Hall of Famer, Broadcasting Legend Hall of Famer, the great Michael St. John is coming into the house now as we welcome on Talking Memphis Wrestling on June the 30th. Hey, Mike.
Boy, what an introduction. You're doing it again. Hi, Pat. How are you, buddy?
Great, great.
That printer problem, you might want to update that firmware on your computer because it did that to me as well.
Well, this is the brand new out of my budget printer computer you told me to buy. You would figure you could get it to hook with a printer.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Well, I'm not good with that kind of thing. I need a tech hand around here.
I'll tell you what, I'll get my guy. I'll get Chad Sanders, who's the best I've ever dealt with. He's right here in Arab, and if we have to come down and fix it, he will, and he's a great guy, and we got to get you up and running. Snow mass. Boy, we could use some snow mass around here this time of year.
That's absolutely right.
Let's do this, folks. Let's do our own weather report. I can tell you right now it was up to a little earlier, 108 heat index. Right now at 7:10 my time, it's sunny. It's 92 degrees. Pat, what is it there in Birmingham?
Okay, it is in Vestavia Hills. It is 90 degrees. We have a heat advisory. These conditions are expected to last till 9 o'clock, July the 2nd. The high today was 95. High tomorrow, 50% chance of rain, is 92. High Thursday is 94. And then into the weekend we'll be in the mid 90s, which is welcome to Alabama in July.
So here we go as we go to the Fun Radio Studios, home studios of Michael St. John. He's all fixed up for his lovely wife. Say, man, you're not going to get any break time. You may be at work all the time, but as soon as you get home, you go upstairs and you go on the air if there's a natural disaster or something going on. What's the weather like in Arab? At the same time, certainly, you know what the subject will be. Randy West's idea of the greatest nights in Memphis wrestling history. Your first take, your opening words, and your weather forecast right now. Here is the wonderful Michael St. John with his first take and whatever else he wants to talk about.
It's funny you would use the word wonderful because Joshua's upstairs and he now is calling me the great and wonderful Papa. So, it's ironic you would use that. Weather forecast here, Pat, very much like Pat. We're under a heat advisory until 9 o'clock tomorrow night. I was on sales calls all day today and in and out of the car. I would go out of the car, grab my sport jacket, put it in when I go into, because of whatever building you were going into was about 60. And then you get back outside and it was in the 90s. But the high today reached 94 at our studios, but it's always 92.7 on your FM radio. So that's sort of the weather forecast. First of all, I appreciate Randy that you saying that talking about Bo's event. You know, I've been to a lot of independent events. I've worked for a lot of independent promotions. I don't know if I've ever worked for one as professionally promoted and professionally pulled off as what Bo did here. And I witnessed it last year up in Manchester at the State Fair, but you're outdoor at a State Fair arena, at a horse arena, and it's a little different. Here it's indoors at the JC building. They were head over heels thrilled with everything the way it turned out. I think there was 212 in the crowd. And they weren't, the thing that I first noticed is they weren't friends of the wrestlers. They weren't like hanger-oners or girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever the case may be. They're actually fans. And that for a first time in Huntsville, Alabama, at an arena that had not had professional wrestling in it since 1992, and on Airport Road on a Friday night when a lot of activities were going on in the city, he did well and put on one heck of a show. There were a lot of kids there, which I was thrilled to see, and they weren't embarrassed by anything that was done in the ring. And I got news for you. There's 2 or 3 people I saw talent-wise that one or two could already be at TNA or at AEW or one of those places, but there are a couple of more that are up and coming. So a real kudos to Bo, and a great job that he and his lovely wife did promoting it. They did. And if you have not been on AL.com, last Friday night they posted a story on Bo's wife, who is the women's champion in Southeastern States Wrestling, and works on the Artemis program for Boeing. And the article was well done, was an in-depth article, was just true to form, no errors, no problems with it. If you haven't seen it, it's at al.com and go to the Huntsville page for sports. And Channel 54, which is not the station he's on, was there with the TV crew. They shot highlights. They played it in their 9 o'clock newscast. I mean, it was as well done as anything. And a few weeks ago, AEW was here, and there were more faux than there were congratulatories. And Bo, who is a smaller operator, comes in 3 weeks later and puts on a hell of a show with no problems.
So there's a couple of Memphis wrestlers that he's been using. I do not know if he had them on those cards. A young man by the name of Tattoo, and
he was there. He works. He's a good worker.
And a young man by the name of Chris Lex, a bigger guy. And Chris is just fantastic. Both of them just great talent. I would have given anything to them being old enough to be a part of Power Pro back in the day, for sure. But that's interesting that you enjoyed the show. Did he put you to work at all?
Oh, hell yeah. You knew I was doing interviews. I mean, as soon as I got there, go over to the interview in front of the screen. We want you to do about 22 interviews before you go. But he gave me $1,000. He just handed me $1,000 and said, here you go do it. So I did it. Fuck!
He probably wrote you out a bill for $1,000. That I can believe.
He did pat me on the back one time. I really appreciate it.
That's good. Are you? Is that your first take, or do you want to leave?
Pretty much so. I mean, Joshua was in the house. We are going. Tomorrow is going to be a special day. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. When his dad was 8 years old, the first holiday we got to go somewhere and do something was the 4th of July. His older brother, Cody's older brother, Ryan, and I took Cody and Ryan, and we went to the fireworks stand just across the river. And I was on a phone call. And I told him, I said, just you guys get what you want. And they were picking out the firecrackers or this, whatever. So finally I called Ryan over. He was the oldest. And I said, here, this is my credit card. Get what you want. This is the first time. We're going to celebrate 4th of July. Get what you want. And they'd never had anybody do that. And Cody still says that was a life moment for him. Well, tomorrow I am kidnapping Joshua. Not really. And his mama's going to let him go. But I'm going to take Joshua and we're going fireworks shopping. So I'm not giving him my credit card. I can tell you that. It's 7 years old, but I'm going to let him pick out what he wants for fireworks.
That'll be a lot of fun. Again, tonight's subject is we'll jump right into it in our second segment. This is a bonus opening segment. Then we have a first segment. I got something fun to do in that. But right now, as I said, Michael, Randy West suggested the idea that good for somebody. Both of you guys at times have suggested ideas, and Randy West suggested this. He suggested a top 10 countdown of the biggest night of Memphis wrestling. What I decided to do, because it's going to be a several week series, we're going to go ahead in order by age, opening up with the 50s wrestling card and going all the way through. Again, that'll be several weeks long. And then once we complete it, then somehow or another, Michael, as a programmer, you can help me figure out how to do it. We need to come up with a top 10 list, at the end of the series. That's what we look forward to for sure at the end of the series. But I'm really, Michael, excited about this biggest nights in wrestling. And I think we can really deep dive. We'll take our time. If we get through 2, that's fine. If we get through 8, that's fine. If we get through 9, we're in trouble because I just have 8 on the format, I think. Your thoughts about Randy West's idea for the show today?
I think it's a good subject because, number one, it's a great idea. But it's a good subject because there were so many highlights for so many nights in Memphis. And perhaps all the cities in the territory, Nashville probably was older in that more shows were performed in Nashville. But the Memphis shows and being at a bigger event once they moved out of the Ellis and into the Mid-South Coliseum, that was the biggest venue of Nick Lewis and Roy Welch's territory. And, of course, Jerry Jarrett took it over. That was the biggest venue in his territory. until they ran Rupp, but they only ran Rupp for, once a month every now and then. But I got to say, there are probably more special nights in Memphis wrestling, especially with the matches, than any of the other cities in the territory.
Really excited about this Shot 6. So we can kind of been a little serious. We did weather forecast. We talked about family, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm going to make you guys, attention, Pat, attention, Michael. I am going to make you laugh on a video that I haven't seen in absolute years. It is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. It is late 79, early 80. The label of the video is Beautiful Bobby Eaton, The Great JoJo, with, I love this part, with lovable but grumpy Harry Thornton that we watch right now, to my knowledge, the first time ever on Talking Memphis Wrestling. This is The Beaut with Harry Thornton. We'll eventually get audio here, I hope. Beautiful Bobby Eaton, Great Togo, and Harry Thornton, Chattanooga, June 21st, 1980. Here we go.
And we have one half of the main event coming out. And Harry Thornton, you've had a lot of tough tag teams around here, such as Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, the Blind Bombers. You've had a lot of tough competition, like Nick Goulas brings in the toughest competition. But right now, you're looking at the greatest tag team, Harry Thornton, that's ever stepped foot inside a ring, inside this Mid-America territory, Harry Thornton. And we want to say one thing about Rocky Brewer. Rocky Brewer, you have stuck your nose in the wrong business, boy. You have busted my head open on occasion times. I don't know how many times he's blacked my eyes, Harry Thornton. He has hurt the Great Togo. Tojo Yamamoto has our contract. He is our manager. And what he tells us to do, we do it. Now, he's running around with a guy that's not a Japanese guy. He's from Korea, right, Togo? He is from Korea, Mr. Oshiro. Now, we don't like guys like that. He couldn't cut it, so we got rid of him. Now, Rocky Brewer, anytime these two men right here can get a hold of you, boy, we don't care where it's at. Like I said, Harry Thornton, we're out for the greatest competition that Nick Goulas can bring him, and you do know that he brings us some good competition, or we wouldn't be here. But we do want you, Rocky Brewer, anytime, any place that we can get our hands on you. Tell him something, Togo. Tell him.
They're no good. Player Oshiro, no good.
No good.
No Oshiro, good. His mother came from Korea.
Yeah.
He's not Japanese. I'm Japanese.
He's
Bobby-san, myself, Great Togo. Number one, Ichiban.
Right,
I know
Thornton. Yeah, what you know what happened? What'd you do?
Oshiro could not take it. Now, when a man could not take it in the organization that we have, we're in for our money. Now, we saw fit that this guy wasn't going to make the Japanese connection any money at all. So we had to get rid of him. We shipped him out. We shipped him out like a bag of rice that he is. He's no good, Harry Thornton. Rocky Brewer's no good. He's got a lot of tag team partners going to bring in, like Bill Dundee, George Goulas. For one man, I want to get a hold of him. And Bill Dundee, Jimmy Valiant. We want every one of them to come and try to take on the greatest tag team that has ever set foot inside the ring in the Mid-America area that is promoted by Nick Goulas.
That's your opinion.
That is the opinion. That is a fact. We want all the competition. The Fargers have got the Southern Tag Team belt. We want the Southern Tag Team belt. We want the Mid-America Tag Team belt. He's the Mid-America champion, Harry Thornton. The Mid-America champion. And from now on, we're going to have so much gold around our waist that they're going to be holding the whole stock on us. You understand what I'm talking about? And all the rednecks out there, when you want to come in and see the greatest tag team right here, the Great Togo and beautiful Bobby Eaton, Harry Thornton. And don't you forget it. And you people out there in Redneck Land, don't forget it.
I'd like to forget it. I think I used to like that guy. What's that, Nick? We'll take a little break right here, friends, and be ready to go with more action.
Mr. Personality.
Very exciting.
wrestling fans, that does it. That's another session of fine professional wrestling brought to you by Nick Goulas, NWA Mid-America Championship Wrestling. We look forward to seeing you again next week. This is Harry Thornton saying so long and have fun.
For 1980, that's a pretty fancy opening, Michael.
Yeah, in fact, I think this may be the close. That first back body drop, that was Eddie Marlin delivering it, by the way.
Oh, is that right?
Studio Wrestling, promoted by Nick Goulas and sanctioned by the NWA, recognized the world over. Join us again next week for Championship Studio Wrestling.
All right, that takes us back from my graduating year in 1980. I'd been a graduate for a month. Pat, what did you think compared to Lance Russell? What did you think about Harry Thornton?
Well, I had two thoughts. My dad won, Archie Bunker number 2.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, just not a lot of juice there. 1980s, probably 3 years late on the I think the leisure suits like that had been gone a couple years, but he's pretty spiffy on it.
And the Nick shirts with the collars that went out to the shoulder blades.
Yeah.
Now, Pat, what did you think as we had somebody mention said, well, they say Bobby couldn't talk. What did you think about Beautiful Bob's? He didn't have any choice but to talk there.
No, he really didn't. He really didn't. I thought he was doing the best he could do. Yeah. There you go, Michael. There you go.
What did you think, Michael?
Pat, you're right on the money, buddy. That may be the most I've ever heard Bobby Eaton talk in a promo.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe so, but you knew he was looking, and you could see in his eyes would go up a little bit because that floor director was going to stretch, and Bobby was trying his best to stretch. That may have been a rib, who knows? But I think that is the first time that Bobby Eaton was ever a heel, if I recall correctly. He had turned on George earlier with Tojo. And I think that was the first.
Rocky Brewer as well. Tell us about Rocky Brewer that he talked about in that interview. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've worked with him, and I can't picture it for some reason. He went in and went out. I mean, I wish I could do more on Rocky Brewer, but I don't. I don't have a whole lot. I know Pat Rose and probably Bo and some of the other folks out there would, but I don't have a lot on Rocky Brewer. And if I'm not mistaken, he may have been from Chattanooga. And of course, this fellow right here is not from Chattanooga. He's from right here in Arab, Alabama.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Joshua.
How you doing, buddy? Are you gonna go pop some fireworks? Are you gonna go fireworks shopping?
Today.
When are we going?
Tomorrow.
There you go. You need to get in the frame here. I need you to. Well, you got to get closer to Pawpaw so people can see who you are.
Let me let's.
There he is. There he is. Yeah, we're doing the fireworks thing tomorrow. Real quick. Tell them what you've. Tell them about your little sister. How's Alexis doing?
Fine.
Now, what did you tell me Alexis does all the time?
What?
And what did you tell me she does all the time? What 2 things does she do?
Nothing.
Oh, don't be shy. You can say it. Go ahead.
I actually don't remember.
Yes, you do. She sleeps and what?
I can guess the second one.
Yeah, you could.
It starts with the letter P.
I remember.
Yeah, you remember. He ain't going to say the word poop on TV.
Right.
Probably a good thing. But anyway, all right. Well, go do what you got to do.
Bye, Joshua.
Tell him bye.
Thank you, Josh. Josh makes his regular appearance here on Talking Memphis Wrestling, as this is the last day of June of this year, July starting tomorrow. And I want to say hello to everybody, all our friends that's coming in here, and we appreciate that very much. As to answer the question I asked Michael, and he passed, King of Kingsport says, Rocky Brewer was from Iowa. He tried to open a territory with Dale Edwards there there and after he worked in Tennessee. So after he left Nick Doulis, he opened a territory or tried to open a territory in Iowa. So that tells us that, Michael St. John.
Yeah, hold on a second. I think somebody wants me to download something on the. This isn't. Is this going to cost me anything?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
And
While Michael's doing that, I was looking up Rocky, and yeah, that Bo, of course, is right. And I'm not checking his math, but anyway, there's a great picture I found on Facebook of Rocky Brewer and Pat Rose. I mean, he was a good looking guy.
I bet he's old now, right?
Well, he's our age now, but yeah, he's old.
Yeah,
He's old. I was curious, Michael. Do you know? And Bo, I guess Judy Lee's driving because you're texting us.
You gave me more credit than he deserved, but go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to give him credit for safety. Does anybody run Chattanooga now? Ever?
I have no idea.
I know that a lot of there's quite a few indies that do some of the towns like Triune and Georgia, and down in that area. I know that Ronnie West boys have done a lot of stuff down there, and Jimmy Powell has done some stuff. But I don't think anybody's running regular, Pat. I don't think anybody's running regular. Let me just say this too, just real quick, and being that Bo's listening or watching. The one thing that I think that happens Friday night, and they're going to come back on August 15th with another show at the JC building, is we're already getting some feedback about people wanting to know when the next show is. So I think there's starting to be a little groundswell, and that's how a new territory has to evolve. That's how Ohio Valley Wrestling evolved. If you listen to the history of that, that's how Smoky Mountain evolved. So, you lay a good foundation, and hopefully people gravitate towards what you're doing.
All right. It is 7:31, half hour into this show. It's still 92 degrees and sunny. One quick side note is that this morning I got an email, said they were working on my side of the building. I live in an apartment complex in Jonesboro. On my side of the building, they were repaving it, and we had to park half a mile away to a mile away, whatever. And as I'm looking out the window, they still has not opened it back up. But I had to walk in the hot, Pat. Do you feel sorry for me?
Oh, I do feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for anybody out here in this heat.
Now, I'm wondering, guys, if our friend, because I hadn't seen, but I've missed some of the comments, Randy West, who suggested this subject of the biggest nights of Memphis wrestling, and certainly Randy, I would be hoping that he would be here in watching this show today. He told me he would, but we will start right now with the first one, and again, we will decide at the end of this series. We will decide and do a top 10 countdown. But again, Adam Dunn not here today, and I've skipped a graphic and a quick question to Michael St. John, because he's broadcast from this studio. This is Chattanooga TV. And tell me briefly about this setup and this studio. And we already talked a couple of weeks ago, the only announcer in the history of wrestling that had a name tag at his desk that I've ever seen in my life was Harry Thornton. Tell me about, I'm assuming this is Channel 2 in Chattanooga.
Actually, it's Channel 12.
Oh, Channel 12, okay.
Market Street in Chattanooga. They did back in 2005 or 6, they did a reunion. It was the station's 50th birthday or 50th anniversary, and they actually recreated that studio. I went up for it. Pat Rose was there. Ronnie West, God rest his soul, was there. I did a deal where I was actually on all 3 TV stations at the same time, because ironically, I have the dubious distinction of being the person that filled in or took the spot of wrestling announcers that had health issues. And my first opportunity to do that was when Harry had his heart attack. And right after this, by the way, he was probably a little more grumpy because he was coming up on a heart attack. And I had to, unfortunately, do that fill in as well in Memphis after Lance had health issues. But that studio was not as big as the Memphis studio. It was more compact. That backdrop, as you saw it, was not even as big as the backdrop I have on the wall here, because as you can see from that picture, you can see where the backdrop ends on either side. And Harry had that nameplate on the front, which was also the nameplate, the exact same nameplate that he used on a show called the morning show on Channel 12 that he used on his morning show. So he just carried it over to the wrestling event. But I think you're right. I think that's the only nameplate I've ever seen in professional wrestling.
Randy West is here, and we're tickled to death about that. And Pat Bo answers your question. He says that TWE, and I've never heard of them, TWE runs Chattanooga every 2 weeks in a shopping center building. So that answers that question right now.
Yeah.
TWE sounds like somebody. I'm sorry, Pat. TWE sounds like somebody that is a trucking company.
Maybe Tennessee Wrestling Enterprises?
Maybe.
Look, I do. Total Wrestling Entertainment, popular professional wrestling and event venue in Red Bank, Tennessee, which is right outside of Chattanooga.
I know I'm a old school guy, but I have problems with that name. Do you, Michael?
I know where it came from. I can tell you that. I know where they copied it from. TNA.
I don't like the word entertainment
in
wrestling. What happened to the time it says Professional Wrestling King of Sports? What happened to those days, Michael?
I always loved it. I always loved that King of Sports moniker.
Me too.
I did too.
The sport of kings is horse racing.
Right.
And the King of Sports is professional wrestling. And I don't know why they ever dropped that moniker, but and again, it drops back to that Vince McMahon avoiding jail time for the steroid mess, in that he fessed up that it was entertainment and they called it entertainment and they got monikered as entertainment. But in my mind, and I think in your mind too, and certainly in the minds of the fans that were here Friday night, it's professional wrestling. It's a sport, by gosh. It is a sport. And if you don't think those are athletes in that ring, and if you don't think there is training that goes on and there's a competition, even though the outcome may be predetermined, there is. And I'm sorry, you go in the back after these young folks have been in the ring and you see the whip, the bruises on their arms and they get cut, they're limping, they've done something, they've stepped wrong or whatever. They're athletes. They're just like the baseball folks that are on TV right now. They're just like those people that are running around on that green field in that, I'm sorry, Pat, sissy sport. I'm telling you, they're athletes, and I'm big about the athlete part of the thing.
All right, Pat went away, and that gives us time to go to Richard Hood's question, and we'll go back to Chattanooga TV. And just a real quick answer, because I can't answer this question because I wasn't in Chattanooga. He said, Michael, what day and time did they tape the studio show in Chattanooga?
I had to be down there for an 11 o'clock show, which was, of course, that's Eastern time. So it would have been a 10 o'clock show in Nashville. And so, but it was an 11 o'clock.
Was it live? Was it live?
When I was doing it, it was, but there were times that it was taped and run in the afternoon because, again, Channel 12 was an affiliate of a network, and I believe, and I may be wrong in this, I'm hoping I'm not, I believe they were an NBC affiliate, which meant during football season and, some other, maybe baseball would preempt the time or would dictate the time, I should say, for professional wrestling. But I remember doing it in the morning at Channel 12.
All
12.
right.
It's
We
on
are
March.
going to back in history right now, and we will go to this, folks. We are going to start. I found the oldest newspaper clipping that I could find. This is from August the 17th, 1959. Now, Pat wasn't born. I wasn't born. Michael was a young man in 1959. He was alive in 1959. Billy Wicks, Sputnik Monroe. We've talked about it several times on this show. At the baseball park, downtown Memphis, Westwood Park in Memphis, Tennessee, it drew, including people that jumped the outfield wall to get in. Now, as this says, 13,749 paying customer, so about 7,000 people jumped the fence, according to the sources that I've talked to for this card, and this night of wrestling for sure, and there was not many matches. Lester Welch drew with the Mighty Yankee. Tojo defeated Rocky Colombo, and Joe Scarpa and Tom Drake battled to a draw. First of all, can you guys, either one of you guys, care to tell Team Hales, our audience today, who Jay Scarpa was?
Joe Scarpa. Joe Scarpa became the Indian. Hold on a second. Jay Strongbow.
Chief Jay Strongbow. Did you know that, Pat?
I did know it, but I couldn't recall it. I had heard it. Yes.
You know, when Nick Goulas had him in the early days here, and he was one of the first people I watched on TV. And my grandfather, of course, was Italian and loved the fact that there was a team back then, and this was after Tex Riley had been killed or died. He put Lynn Rossi and Joe Scarpa together for a short period of time. They were popular in Birmingham, Pat.
Yeah.
They made personal appearances at the Roma Club.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
The main event of the night. Listen to this, folks. It was August the 17th, 1959. It's for the Tennessee Heavyweight Championship. Billy Wicks against the Diamond Ring Cadillac Man, Sputnik Monroe. The winner of this match was to win a 1959 brand new Cadillac. The match, of course, Sputnik Monroe, and we'll show his ugly face. This looks like a mean son of a gun. He looks like a heel. He looks like a baby face. Sputnik Monroe and Billy Wicks. The referee was boxing champion Rocky Marciano before my time, and we can see what Michael has to say about that. One thing that I wonder how the next week they did not do a finish. Nobody won the Cadillac that night. Nobody was the winner of that match. However, I think the people got their pop because at the end, the referee, Rocky Marciano, stopped the match and called it a no decision. Then Sputnik got into Rocky Marciano's face, messing around with him, and referee Rocky Marciano, the boxing world heavyweight champion, I don't know at the time, but at one time he knocked out Sputnik Monroe. So, 13,000 people or 20,000 people, whatever it was, went crazy. And there's no doubt this is the biggest attendance that's ever been at the certainly at the Mid-South Coliseum, because the Coliseum just would hold 11,700 pack. So I thought that was interesting. The Sputnik Monroe Billy Wicks feud skyrocketed Memphis wrestling, the revenues went through the roof, and because of Spudman role and which led action from him led to social changes and the end of Jim Crow laws in Memphis, Tennessee. And I think that is so historically, your favorite word, Pat, significant. There's no doubt about it. But did you learn anything new about that night on August the 17th at Rustwood Park in 1959? We'll go with you first, Pat.
Well, I know that's one of the biggest shows in Memphis wrestling history, if not the biggest. But I was looking up Rocky Marciano because I was wondering, how old he was, and what his career path had been before. He was only 35 years old at that time, and I think had was at the around that point in time contemplating a comeback to boxing, but he decided not to do that.
He kicked Joe Lewis's ass.
Yeah,
Did you ever
Really?
did you ever
Oh,
see
yeah.
the movie The Coming to America? The cat just did that. Did you ever see the movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy? There's a barbershop scene in that is hilarious, where
Yeah.
they're talking about the boxing, and then the guy says greatest Joe Lewis, greatest heavyweight champion ever, Joe Lewis, and Rocky, the white guy goes, Rocky Marciano knocked his ass down, at which the barber, the guy says, Rocky Marciano, every white guy bring up Rocky Marciano. Joe Lewis, 137 years old. When Rocky Marciano, it was hilarious. It's hilarious. You can go on YouTube. It's all over YouTube. But
Well,
Marciano,
that was Eddie Murphy, and who was his partner in the movie, dressed up differently in the barbershop.
Michael, your cat muted you again.
they did all the tag. Yeah, she's leaning on the board. I don't know why. They did all the characters in the scene. But
Yeah.
if you get a chance to go to YouTube, it's the Coming to America. But Joe Lewis, 137 years old when Rocky Marciano knocked him out. Marciano was, and he was called that in the 50s, the Great White Hope. And
Yeah.
I think there was a big movie about it. And then he lost, if I'm not mistaken, Marciano lost the championship to Floyd Patterson, who then lost it to Sonny Liston, who then lost it to Muhammad Ali in Miami Beach.
Now, this was so big, Pat. I was curious because this is pre-Jerry Jarrett, because and pre-Nick Gulas and Roy Welch. Buddy Fuller was a booker, and at that time, did you have any talks in the several talks you've had with Jerry Jarrett about Sputnik Monroe, about this event that predated him? And did you ever have any discussion? And what was your knowledge of this match up until the show?
I did not have any particular specific discussion about the match. He talked about, Sputnik being, probably the first real breakout star in Memphis, at least in people's memories. But no, we didn't have anything specific about it.
Michael, you've been around a long time, and I guess the first question that I'm going to ask, and I love asking stuff. Sometimes I ask stuff I know the answer. Other times I ask stuff that I want to know the answer but don't know the answer. So my question to you is, on the Nick Gulas end, how much did you see Billy Wicks and Sputnik Monroe? Easy for me to say, if any.
I never knew about Billy Wicks and the Monroe theme, the whole thing, until 1977 when I did the shows for Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett when he broke away. I then heard and learned about the history. I got to know Sputnik fairly well. He was the original, and I hope I'm not saying this the wrong way. I think by that was the Cadillac match that he was referred to, and I heard him refer to himself as the Cadillac Man on
Yes.
many occasions. And then, of course, Handsome Jimmy was the diamond wearing, Cadillac driving, whatever. But the Cadillac man that I remember being told by Sputnik Monroe that he was the Cadillac man. And I think that may have been where that moniker came from. I did know a little bit about that history of that match. I understand it was huge. It was at the home of the Memphis Chicks, which was a baseball team of the Southern League back in those days. The old Southern League, they had the Arkansas Travelers in Little Rock and the Birmingham Barons, of course, Mobile Bears, the Atlanta Crackers. Not a racist name, of course. But I got to tell you that, to fill up a ballpark, that kind of crowd, to watch a wrestling match between Billy Wicks and Sputnik Monroe, that had to be one of the biggest nights ever in the history of Memphis sports, period.
Yeah.
Period. I agree
Does
with you.
anybody?
Richard Hood, Pat says, as you were doing your research, I think you read something on Rocky Marciano. Richard Hood says, to Michael, said Rocky Marciano never lost as a pro. He went undefeated. Did you see that in your research there, Pat?
I didn't.
No.
I was just looking up how old he was primarily. I've got a question. What where was that field?
We looked it up, didn't we? 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yes.
It was almost downtown.
By Madison, maybe.
Yeah, I want to say on Madison, and I want to say it was north of the hospital, or rather west of the hospitals and the hospital district. And I want to say it was kind of over there where the commercial appeal building was and all that. I think it was right in that kind of area.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but it was gone by the time I was programmed there. But
First lady of Talking Memphis Wrestling, PJ, is in the house. Says hello to me. Says hello to Pat. Says hello to Michael. And certainly the significant. I think it's easy to say TV didn't start in Memphis to either the late 40s or early 50s. What would you guess, Michael?
I think you're right. I think it was 49 or 48 or 49 when they got the first TV station, which I believe was Channel 5, if I'm not mistaken, was WMC, because it had the 3-letter call.
All right. Just very interesting situation. Now, Pat, did you have something?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So the regular home for years and years and years was the old Ellis Auditorium. They tore part of that down and converted that into the Cook Convention Center. And what they've changed the name of the Cook Convention Center to is near and dear to Pat Trammell's pocketbook, certainly a way. So tell them what the convention center right there at the I-40 bridge, tell them what that convention center is called now, Mr. Trammell, and how it relates to you.
Well, it is the Renaissance Convention Center, which is Renaissance Bank, headquartered in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is my gainful employer. So yeah, it's a. I wish you could see that if you're coming from Arkansas. It's a fantastic. It's a fantastic signage on it, but unfortunately, you can't see it from anywhere in Memphis. So anyway, but yes.
It's a beautiful facility.
It's been redone, and I mean, I think they put multiple millions of dollars in it. It is a fantastic facility for sure.
That is a beautiful, beautiful facility. Just before you go on, let me just mention this. I pulled this up because we looked it up a couple of weeks ago. The old baseball park in Memphis was Russwood Park at 914 Madison. Was prominent stadium used for baseball from 01 until the destruction by fire in 1960. Was home to the Memphis Chicks and many other big events.
914, is that what you said?
914 Madison. That's over there by St. Joseph Church, I believe.
Well, let's see what's there now. I've got my phone working.
Now Madison is next door, straight ahead of Madison. Union Avenue is straight ahead.
It's parallel.
Right,
it's parallel, yes.
Of Madison, and the TV Channel 5 studios is 1960 Union. So tell me again that address, Michael.
It was 914 Madison. So that would be 10 blocks west of Channel 5.
Right. Toward Little Rock.
Yes, sir.
Very interesting stuff. And now, and this is we're going to jump into, obviously, in the 50s, the regular Monday night. It was a Monday night town for many, many years, even going back to the 50s. And the Ellis Auditorium was the sites. But then in 1971, they were converting that building from the Ellis Auditorium to the Cook Convention Center, and that was a big deal. And because of that, the construction was going to take a while, and they had already done construction on a new building that they were going to open up, and that new building that they were going to open up certainly created a lot of Monday night memories. And there's that graphic there, Monday night memories at the Mid-South Coliseum. And just to get into the history of this, the Cook Convention Center or the Ellis Auditorium, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people max. Would you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, and it was, and when I went inside and again I was in Memphis in 76, 77, in 78, it was a dump. I mean, the Ellis Auditorium it probably was in the shape that the Mid-South Coliseum is now.
Now, here's the thing, Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. Obviously, I know Michael's been in the Mid-South Coliseum, and it's the granddaddy of them all, and just so important to all us, all Memphis wrestling fans. Pat, I'm just curious, have you ever been in the Mid-South Coliseum in your life?
I have been in the Mid-South Coliseum, but not to see an event. I snuck in there one time about 8 or 9 years ago just to see it and feel it.
Did you kind of just sneak through that back gate?
Yep.
Nobody ran you off?
Nope.
And was there junk all over the place?
There was, but I'll say this: it was not. It was not. It did not look like a a building falling down or anything. I mean, it's still, it didn't look so terribly bad.
Let's talk about the event, and then you guys, I'll ask your opinion on this, because I always heard this was a have-to type of thing that Nick Gulas and Roy Welch thought as a bad thing, because Memphis had been one of their top towns, along with Chattanooga and Birmingham, and Memphis was a very good Monday night town, especially once Jerry Jarrett started booking at the end of the 60s at the Ellis Auditorium. And so they were closing the building down to do the remodel, and the new building had opened several years before, 1971. And somebody, if you don't have a producer here, somebody, Pat, can you do a Google search real quick and see when the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis opened? And a quick little deal with that.
I want to say that was 69 or 68 or 69.
I'm thinking the late 60s, and Pat Trammell is doing the research. Pat Michael's going to
very much 1964.
Okay.
That surprises me.
And closed in 2006.
I went to a concert there when I was at Vanderbilt for the group America. And we went down. I was running the college radio station, and that was in 70, maybe 71. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was much, much more well ornated than the Nashville Municipal Auditorium, which was, built around maybe a little earlier than that. But it was a palace. I can remember going in there and saying, "Oh my God, this is the Mid-South Coliseum." And for wrestling, oh my goodness.
What I understand, go ahead, Pat.
I went in there, Randy, in 2000. in the fall of 2011.
Fall of 2011.
Yeah, so it's
That's
been 15
interesting
years ago.
as well. Michael, what I always heard at this point in 71, you didn't have, as far as I know, you didn't have a relationship with any of the parties of Nick Gulas or Jerry Jarrett or anybody else. And certainly as the booker, this would have been a decision forced upon Gulas and Welch, Roy Welch and Nick Gulas, by the fact that they needed a venue because they had to have the Monday night town. And so certainly that was important in switching. From what I understand, Michael, is that the idea was let them do the construction, whether it was a year or 2 years or whatever the case. They were a little worried. The promoters, Nick Gulas and Roy Welch, saying, "Oh, people won't go to that Mid-South Coliseum. It'll be too expensive," and said people can't walk there, and people can't do this, and people can't do that, and they were fearful of it. It was meant to be a short-term deal until the Ellis was converted and Cook Convention Center opened, and they certainly thought that 11 at that point it was scaled for 10,000 people. They thought people will not go there. So Michael, talk about that. Any experience you've had when you've been a part of any kind of promotion, as you have promoted stuff your whole life with the radio station and been involved in wrestling your whole life. Pat, you've lived it with sporting as a sporting fan and that sort of thing. How big of a deal do you think it would have been a as big of a deal if, let's say, if the Busch Stadium in St. Louis has changed hands many times, but say in Chicago, all of a sudden they tore down Wrigley Field or Wrigley or the Chicago Comiskey Park. How big a deal and how much fear do you think from the promoters when they opened the Mid-South Coliseum?
Well, I wasn't around for that because Nick had lost the city by the time I did work for him. Jerry Jarrett obviously was not afraid to go to the Mid-South Coliseum. I mean, that was his mainstay. So I think you're talking about a generational thing. You know, Nick and Roy came out of that Depression era. That's when they grew up. And I know Nick was very adamant about not running the memorial or the auditorium in downtown, the municipal auditorium in downtown Nashville. We ran it a couple of times for big shows. In fact, when the Sheik came in and we had a show down there, Bobo Brazil was in town. I believe Andre was in town, and we ran the municipal auditorium. But Nick always, and remember, Nick had his office downtown. He was always fearful the parking situation would keep fans away. And I think more so in a Nashville situation than a Memphis situation, because it's at the fairgrounds in Memphis. You got parking lots all over the place. You have the stadium next door. You got plenty of parking.
Plenty of parking, so that
they charge for it. But downtown Nashville, my God, you know, the municipal auditorium, somebody set down a spaceship on James Robertson Parkway and 4th Street. So I mean, there was no parking. So I understood that, but I don't understand. I wouldn't think that would hold water in Memphis, other than the fact that they charge for parking, but they weren't charging back then for parking what they're charging for parking now. So, but there was a hesitancy. And the other question I have is how much was the rent on the building? Because at the Fairgrounds Arena in Nashville, I don't know if Nick even paid rent or to run the shows there. I think they got they had a deal about concessions and whatever. So, but I don't think he ever paid rent on the building. And I don't think he paid rent in Chattanooga on the city auditorium. And I know he did not pay rent here in Huntsville at the old Madison County Coliseum or the Patton Street Armory down the street from where I lived and was born. So the question again was economics. Were they just not wanting to run those buildings because they had to rent them?
That's true. A couple of things. I have always heard that parking, and when I first started going every Monday night, parking was free. It was in later years that they changed to parking, and that was issue there that people who you've been spoiled, and then all of a sudden you're charged for that, and people gets up in arms about that. This
Randy, are you talking about the Ellis or at the Mid South?
I'm talking about Mid South because the Ellis was way before my time, way before my time, and certainly again, I think the main point I wanted to make, a big night, June 7th, 1971. They knew after the first night it was a success because that June 7th, 1971, at this point was the biggest indoor crowd. Obviously, we talked about Westwood Ballpark that had officially 13,000 tickets sold and 20,000 people in the stadium. But an inside venue, certainly, probably the record was around 6,000 people, if that, maybe mid fives, on June 7th, 1971 at the Mid-South Coliseum. And you see Jerry Jarrett, Tojo Yamamoto, Don Green, Al Green, and Sir Steve Clemens. You at this point, and you can see in that floor area, and this might have been from this first night that drew 9,253 people. 9,253 people.
Yeah, it says premieres.
Do what, Pat?
On the picture, it said wrestling at the Mid South Coliseum premieres before 92-63. So, yeah, that's first night.
June 7th, 1971. And if you can look at that picture, Pat and Michael, obviously it was set up, but you can see this was a sellout, what it was scaled for. So everybody was over the moon with the excitement of this night. But look at the open area on the floor, Michael and Pat. Look at how many more on the ends, especially more rows you could have got there. And on both ends, they would eventually a temporary set of bleachers on both ends, so it jammed out with all bleachers and all setups and more ringside tickets. 11,755 people is what you could put on here. And we're just going to go by this card and just quick thoughts real quick about this. The opening match, Pat, was Hawaiian wrestler and Eddie Marlin's buddy that used to come every summer with his whole family and stay with Eddie and Norma Marlin. Oni Wiki Wiki has no idea. I loved Oni Wiki Wiki. Would come just once a year. I don't know whether he worked in Chattanooga or Birmingham. You guys,
he ran Shreveport, Bill Watts,
and he did work for Bill Watts. You're exactly right about that. Only Wiki Wiki wrestled Gary Martin. Gary Martin, for a very short time, was Jerry Jarrett's brother-in-law.
Yeah.
As he was married, Gary Martin was married to Carolyn Jarrett, and that was Teeny's daughter. Teeny had 2 children, but only Wiki Wiki and Gary Martin. Pat, your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've seen Oni Wiki Wiki once or twice only. I've not seen Gary Martin. I will say I was reading up on the history of the Mid South Coliseum while we were talking. I don't know what they paid for that, but it's always been, the only permanent tenant in there was Memphis, Memphis basketball, the Tigers, not the Grizzlies. So, I expect wrestling's pretty important at that place.
And you're around 52 weeks out of the year every Monday night. And by the end, the rent, I think the percentage was always the same, 12% of the net. After basically you have your gross house and you take off the athletic commission taxes and the state taxes, and then the Coliseum would get 12% of that. And the percentage always stayed the same. But there was a minimum in probably the later 8-10 years, and that minimum rent was $1,000. So that's what it ended up.
Do you have any idea, Randy, what a what an average house would be from a dollar standpoint?
In those times, I have no idea, and I would say probably ringside tickets were 350. I would guess. I
So,
would guess.
so probably a sellout would be a $20,000 house.
I'm
And I'm being
I
conservative.
would just doing the numbers. That's sort of where it would between 20 and 25. I think you're right, Pat.
Okay, okay.
So that's the opening match on the card, and excuse me for getting choked. Michael, any thoughts on Oni Wiki Wiki, real quick? And
Man,
Gary Martin.
I couldn't believe how short he was. He was not a very tall gentleman. He could work. I got to call a couple of his matches when he'd come to town in the latter years, but I got to meet him. He was already the booker or promoter. I think he was promoter by name at Shreveport, at the Shreveport arena there out by the fairgrounds. I do know that my mom's oldest sister and her husband had a restaurant there in Shreveport, actually in Bossier City, and they would feed the wrestlers after the show because Uncle Joe would keep his restaurant open. He also fed Elvis back in the day on the Louisiana Hayride, but it was called Canaggio's, and it was a Bossier City hangout. And he had a bar, and he had great steaks and great chicken, and chicken in the straw was his big deal. But anyway, he would feed the wrestlers, and only Wiki Wiki knew him, and that I sort of had a connection there because of that.
We're doing the history of Memphis wrestling, the greatest nights of Memphis wrestling. A idea suggested to me by my good friend Randy West, the best producer and cameraman in the history of Memphis wrestling. Randy West suggested that. I appreciate him for doing that. We're looking at June the 7th, 1971, the first show of the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis for wrestling. Pat already said that the debut event at the Coliseum was in, you said 1964, right, Pat?
That's right.
This house, June 7th, 1971, drew 9,253 people. The second match of this event was Tinker Todd against Mario Galento, who the famous story later on was he hit the ring on Channel 13. And there's controversy involving this and stories that Jerry Jarrett thinks that Roy Welch paid Mario Galento to come in because Roy Welch, who had got dementia at the time, as the story, thought that Jerry Jarrett was going to steal his town and had Mario Galento. And totally, this is totally a rumor. I have no idea if it's true or not. But Mario Galento lost to Tinker Todd by disqualification. Next match was a ladies mixed match, Darlene Dagmar, little person, and Cora Combs against Diamond Lil and Ann Casey. And that was a feature attraction match on the card. Then came the Alaskans, Mike York and Frank Monte against Bearcat Brown, the popular Bearcat Brown and Frankie Hester. Then came a World's Lady title match, Fabulous Moolah against Vicky Williams, a Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship match, Lynn Rossi champion against Sputnik Monroe. Then Devon Bronner's defeated Jackie and Roughhouse Fargo in the main event. And I thought it was interesting. The last two matches were heel finishes. It was Don and Al Green, where they had their hair at stake against the titles, and the Greens defeated Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto. It drew 9,253 people at the time, the biggest indoor card in the history of Memphis wrestling. Your thoughts on that card and any question you may have, Pat?
I mean, that's just a great card, and I wonder I wonder what the expectations was from the promoters and all that as to what they were going to get.
I've
I
heard they
mean,
were scared.
well, I expect so. I mean, I'm assuming you didn't have sellout after sellout in the Cook Convention Center.
No.
Now let me say this: the except for people from Arkansas, obviously, which I don't know what that draw was either. I suspect pretty good from West Memphis, but the Mid South Coliseum is more convenient to the middle class folks, which we all are, which show up at wrestling, right?
Right.
It was also more
Yeah.
centrally located because it
Well,
was
that's
in
what I
Mid City.
meant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in
It's
Mid
in,
City off Highland. Uh, Pat, you made a great point there. The question I have, you're calling out these names. Some of those names were brought in for this night, obviously, and they don't get the normal salary that the other boys get. I mean, if you're going to bring in a special talent, you're probably paying trans and whatever their guarantee is. So they had quite a bit of money, I would think, at stake on this card. Ironically, was Jackie Fargo's brother Ruff? Was he billed as Roughhouse on this card? Because back then he was still Sonny Fargo, to my knowledge.
And just on this card, that I didn't see a newspaper ad for this card. It was just a listing. So you're right, and probably I would vote that you're right, that it says Jackie and Sonny Fargo, but I don't have any proof of that. But I bet you're right. I'd bet money on it.
Yeah, for the date and time that this card you're giving, it's very. I think it's very. I would bet money it's Jackie and billed as Jackie and Sonny Fargo, because of course Sonny became Roughhouse. That is Pat. You're a historian on this, but look at the Hall of Famers on that card in any Hall of Fame in wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it drew 9,253 people. That was a sellout. And but it wasn't really a sellout. I mean, it was officially a sold out because all the chairs were sold, but it wasn't what the building could do.
Well, and again, look at the configuration. You can put that slide back. If you can put that slide back up there, the configuration, that's configured for a basketball court, roller derby, a concert. Put a stage at one end. You got a concert arena. But I mean, you look at the floor seats. It was almost like, and I'm wondering if there was a hesitancy to put any more floor seats on there because you'd have to pay for chairs. They didn't probably have the chairs. They probably had to rent them from somewhere or get them from somewhere else. You got to pay for them. So that's more expense. So I think probably it was some kind of economic thing on this that they didn't have floor seats. But like you were saying, Randy, as wrestling took off at the facility, I mean, the times I was there that, was involved, and even as a fan, the floor was full of people. I mean, if you were getting popcorn and you were in the third row, you better take 20 minutes because it's going to take you 20 to get to the concession stand, get the popcorn, and get back.
I love that picture, Michael.
Oh, I do too. Too. And I'm looking at that far end. At that far end, I believe it mirrored the other side. And in seeing concerts there, they would put the stage at one end. And as I look at that, you could have a rodeo with that empty floor space. You could have a rodeo or roller derby and still draw money on it.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. Just an impressive card. And then remember, the debut event happened on June 7th, 1971. It drew 9,253 people. Finally, the first official sellout at the Mid-South Coliseum when they put more tickets. I wish I had a picture of this, and I don't. We go all the way to August the 8th, 1972. So the opening card of the building drew June the 7th, 1971, and they knew right then there was several thousand more people at 9253 than they never drew in an inside venue. So they were hooked on the Mid-South Coliseum, and they committed to it. The first official sellout was on August the 8th, 1972. And it's interesting that summertime, just like the June 7th card that Oni Wiki Wiki was on, Oni Wiki Wiki was back on August the 8th, 1972. He wrestled Joe Blassie in the opening match. Second match, listen to these names: Tommy Gilbert against Corsica Joe, Don Green and Sir Steve Clements against Cowboy Frankie Lane. In a minute, I'm going to have Michael talk about Frankie Lane, and Pat too, if he was a big deal in Chattanooga or Birmingham. Frankie Lane, Eddie Marlin against Don Green and Steve Clements. And the the interesting thing is that's your opening matches, and the main event was 2 out of 3 falls, no disqualification, hair versus hair. Also, Don Green's U.S. Junior title was at stake. Uh, and if Al Green lost, Don Green, Al Green, and Sir Steve Clements would be leaving town. It was 2 out of 3 falls, no disqualification. Jackie Fargo won the first fall, Al Green the second fall, and third call. And folks, you can go to YouTube, and certainly we've showed it before, but if you haven't seen this match, there's 3 clips: fall one, fall two, fall three. Search for 1972 Loser Leave Town, Jackie Fargo and Al Green, and just listen to the people, listen to the reaction, look at the psychology of this match. You've got to see that. So, what a card! Absolutely. So I covered that card, and now we'll go. This time, I've been picking on Pat so much. We'll go with Michael St. John. This fantastic card that did 10,653 people, headlined by a hair match, Fargo and Al Green. Michael.
You know, you gave the sellout earlier at 9,800 and something, and now the obviously
9253. 9253.
Okay. Now you've increased the building availability of seats, and they sell it out too. So
Right.
I mean, that's sort of significant in its own right. Al Green and Jackie Fargo, I love that picture because Fargo, I just know Fargo's saying, "Hit me." You know, he's giving that hit me. He's giving that look. Look at what great shape Jackie. He's tan. His legs are well defined. Looks like he's been working out. You know, Fargo was Fargo, and Al Green was just a brawler. My gosh, what a brawler! But I would
think wrestler. Both of them, they look like wrestlers. They don't look like that.
Exactly. They don't look like Opie Fibby or whatever the guy's name. Who I understand, he played Alabama. Did Saban recruit him, Pat?
I
Opie
don't
Fibby,
know.
Opie Fibby, he's my new favorite wrestler.
Well, he was in Alabama. Somebody told me he was on the track and field team and played did shot put. Why in the hell didn't Nick did Nick Saban have him on the football field as another
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody out there that knows more information than we do about Opie Fibby, as we're talking a little modern wrestling as well, certainly want to concentrate on this card, and this just, you're right about this picture, and Pat, we'll let you comment too. Just looking at the picture, that tells the story. That tells the story, and that tells you why that's so sold out. That's just a fantastic picture, Pat. Your comments.
Oh, that could be anywhere across the territory, right? That would be a headline. That would be a main event in Nashville and Birmingham and Memphis, obviously, and everything else. But that's old school stuff. That's good guys and bad guys.
Man, simpler days, but more enjoyable days for sure, Pat. It's just great
Absolutely,
stuff.
it is great stuff. And I'll tell you what, you I don't know how to say this in the way that I can remember it, and I don't know how people. You got 5 senses. Is that right? When a heel walked in, and I don't know if this makes any sense to you. When a heel came in and was introduced in Boutwell Auditorium, particularly the Greens or somebody like that, the smell changed for me.
Right. Good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Good point for sure. And before we get out of this, I'm going to put Tony.
Smell.
Yeah, think about that.
I like that. I really like that.
Tony Richard says, and this is so familiar, Tony, with me. We got the same thoughts. Tony going in July in the Tragus Hall of Fame in Iowa. Good luck to him, and we will talk about that more next week. Tony says this angle and match is what made me a wrestling fan. Fargo and Green in 1972, and I've told the story. The first television show I ever wrestling television show I was at my house, and my mother brought me a tray with my lunch, and eventually the show started at 11, so we didn't eat that early, but it was an hour and a half show. But I was told it before, first time I heard it's America's favorite sport on WHBQ television. So the story of the show was Al Green, who had been feuding with Jackie Fargo, was trying to goad him into a hair match. As Tony says, this angle and match hooked him on a wrestling fan. It did good for me because I believed it as probably a 9 or 10 year old kid, hook, line, and sinker, because Fargo saying no. I was basically said my blonde hair is my gimmick. There's no way I'm with all the shenanigans you do. And Al Green came back. I knew he would be a coward, and he said you're just like your dead alcoholic daddy, type of thing. That was the line Jerry Jarrett gave him, and Fargo came out. Personal issues draw money. We've said it a million times on this show, and I think I'm going to get a new background that says that, because it's so dang true, people. It is so darn true. Personal issues draw money. That interview has stuck with me with my whole life. Tony Richards feels the same way, just a classic personal issue, money. And Pat, in your conversations and your questions with Jerry Jarrett, did you ever talk to him, or did he ever discuss that major event, which is one of, it has to be in the top five of if not number one, and that's why we're going to rank them. Folks, remember what we've talked about: the Coliseum debut, the Sputnik Monroe Billy Wicks match. We talked about this Al Green Jackie Fargo hair match. We will cover a few more today and in the next couple of weeks. By the way, starting next week for a few weeks, due to Dark Side of the Ring, this show is moving to Wednesday. But any thoughts? Basically, even though it was a good solid card all the way through, there was one money match, Pat, one money match, and that money match was Fargo and Al Green.
That's absolutely right. And Jerry did talk to me about Fargo, and he said, I would have kept Fargo on the roster. He didn't call it a roster, but I would kept him wrestling until he was 80 years old if I could have. He said because he said Lawler took the mantle, but you were gonna have a house with Jackie Fargo in it, and that's there's if you think about it, everybody has runs and all that, but Fargo could come back, be gone a year, and sell out the house. Just
I
just the person. It's
that
amazing.
That's a great point, Pat, and that's something I heard Jerry. In fact, Jerry, we talked about that on the ride sometime. He would say that. You talk about that there are certain individuals in certain arenas of life that you mention the name, and the name's going to draw. Whether it's listeners, whether it's people coming to see him at an event, whether it's a concert, whether it's you think of the Beatles. Back in the day, you mentioned the Beatles are going to be boom, and the sellout was instantaneous in the 60s, which was unheard of. And I think Fargo, and the thing that allows me to say this about Fargo is you had two promoters that said the exact same thing. Nick Goulas said the same thing that Jerry Jarrett did.
Yeah.
You could put Fargo in there to sell popcorn, and people would come to see Fargo. And
Absolutely.
I think, and Randy, what you just said about that card, that's a great card, absolutely. But the reason the people came was to see Fargo and Al Green, because somebody was going to lose some hair. And that, I'm telling you, that in today's match, you know, you look at all these stipulations. Last night, Brock Lesnar comes back and he challenges Obi Phoebe or whatever for Hell in a Cell. Okay, well, I'm not going to go see Hell in a Cell. I'm sorry. Now, if it's like Jimmy Cornette said a few weeks ago on this show, you had the clip of him saying, and I read it, about what draws people. The fight between David and Goliath is what it all comes down to. Would you go? Would you buy a ticket to see Goliath and David fight? You bet you would. Would you buy a ticket to see Jackie Fargo sell popcorn? Back in those days, you bet you would. And here's the thing to think about. And we're talking about matches. Let's talk about drawing power. I love Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler is one of my favorite people and one of my favorite wrestlers and one of my favorite minds in sports in the history of my life.
How about?
But who would draw back in the day, back in that day, back to this most recent days, who would draw money on their name, would draw more money on their name just by putting their name on the marquee? Jackie Fargo or Jerry Lawler? Think about that.
Pre-74, I'd say Fargo. As a weekly member of the crew, after 74, I'd say Lawler.
Really?
Absolutely. I love Fargo. I love Fargo. And he got to the point early on because he was so successful and had other irons in the fires. And we all know what those were that kept him away from the wrestling business and the areas that he could make money doing something else. I love Fargo. He was my first favorite wrestler. He got me hooked in the wrestling business. The second thing, as you talking about different people, so far of the matches released for Summer Slam, because I've seen the two prior Obafemi, who I'm real high on, and he's the next face, no doubt, of the WWE.
He's the next beast. He's the next beast in WWE.
He's the next star. More than he translates.
I think he's the next Andre, the next Brock Lesnar kind of character. I don't know if he's Obafemi. Okay. But I don't know if he's going to be as big as Roman Reigns someday.
And that dude, if you look at what Roman's done over the last so many years, that's hard to do. And we may do a show and we look at national wrestling and the people. It's hard to argue about Roman Reigns. Of course, you have to argue. You talk about the territories and you talk about the Brunos and the Vern Gagnes and the Hulk Hogans and all that stuff. It's a hard decision. I'm just talking about what I see out there and looking at the next 5 years. Obafemi, who I'm big time. I like the fact he's a real athlete. I like the fact that they kind of got away from the big monster type of people. All they really had was certainly lately was a part-time Brock Lesnar. I'm really excited about Obafemi, and can you tell me any SummerSlam match besides that? Because I'd have to think.
Yeah, Seth Rollins and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And I thought they set it up probably one of the better setups they've done in years, because Seth Rollins made the comment in the ring to Roman Reigns, "You beat everything. You're a Hall of Famer. Your first ballot Hall of Famer. I will probably be the person to introduce you to the Hall of Fame, to induct you to the Hall of Fame. But there's one thing you haven't done in your career, and that's beat me." And the people popped. Let me tell you, it was like mic drop. You didn't have to say anything else. The match was promoted. And and that's the thing. We were going back to what we're talking about with Don Green or with Al Green and Jackie Fargo. Had we seen it, had we had tapes of that, which unfortunately we don't, I bet you there were a hell of a lot of mic drop moments in those promos.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. PJ agrees with you with your question, Lawler or Fargo. PJ agrees with you. You say Jackie Fargo. So Fargo or Lawler, Pat? Because I kind of sissied out of it because I said the pre-74 thing, and certainly Fargo was a big part of several record houses against Lawler. Lawler was a big part of every record house from 74 on. So where would you put your vote there?
I mean, uh, I think it's because of my age and Lawler's age, but and I've never seen Jackie Fargo live. Okay, to
Really?
me, nope, never,
I'm surprised. I'm surprised. You've
never
never
did.
seen him live, not
Mm-mm.
even in a managerial role or anything.
Nope, nope,
What?
never saw him live. Jackie, and this is not to diminish Lawler in any way. I know he's drawn more money, but he had a different promoter. Jackie Fargo is a legendary figure to me. I mean, he's almost a different figure to me. So I would say Fargo.
Well, Fargo also in multiple territories. He could
Yeah,
draw in Nashville, Birmingham, Chattanooga just by putting his name on the market, even Memphis, but also New York. I
yeah.
mean, there's people of older people our age or my age in New York that still swear that Jackie and Don Fargo set the mark for the first sellout ever at the Madison Square Arena. Even above the Grahams, even above San Martino, Buddy Rogers named a wrestler. Here's something that was said to me, and I want to say Fargo said it, but it may have been Jerry Jarrett. Jackie Fargo would go away from the territory, sometimes at his hottest moments, and not be seen for 6 months or a year, and then would come back. And the statement was made to me, and it rang true in the broadcast field in my world too. They can't miss you if you don't go away.
Jerry Jarrett told you that because he told me the same thing.
Told me that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And Jim Cornette says it all the time. And certainly I want to just recap of what we're doing. We got about 25 minutes left in the show, and we'll probably hit our time because I'm not going to, this is so fun. I am going to not rush this show, and I want to explain what we're doing. We're heard from Bobby Eaton earlier. Also, this is part one of the biggest nights of Memphis wrestling. And when we get into the end, I want people to comment. And this is strictly for Memphis wrestling. Dr. Robinson made a comment a little later on and talked about a great match. And I certainly agree with the match as I'm trying to find it. He said that SummerSlam 1992, Bret Hart versus Davey Boy. If we did the best matches in the history of professional wrestling, this could go on for 3 years or more. And so we certainly can't do that. And so,
are we going to do any stars? Are we going to do like a 10-star, a 5-star, anything like that? Or are we going to steal any of Metzler's thunder on these matches? Should we rank them by stars?
if y'all want to, you can. It makes me the star rating. I'll tell you what makes a match great. I'll tell you what it drew, if it got over, if the match was great, if everybody at the end of that match left believing everything they saw. F word 5-star matches, without any doubt. All right, here we go. Now that y'all knock Lawler, I'll put him over.
That guy had a pretty decent little career, didn't he?
To me, final comment, and excuse me, Randy, but I got to put this because I just thought about this. To me, Fargo's name value equals the name value of Dusty Rhodes. You could bring Dusty Rhodes to a territory and put his name on the marquee, and people would come because it's Dusty Rhodes. And I think there were certain NWA heavyweight champions that had that same draw for a long, long time. I don't think that's the case in this day and time, but I think it was back then.
No, it's a different world now that it's national wrestling companies. It certainly is. We're going to talk now. We're going to skip because we saw the 50s match with Sputnik. We saw the debut card at the Mid-South Coliseum. We saw the great card. We talked about with Al Green and Jackie Fargo first sellout. And so as we move on, as I got to put my uh, uh, glasses on, 1974 was the road to the gold. It was all year long. Lawler sold out many times with Fargo, many times with Rick Gibson, Bobo Brazil, The Cheek, so many guys, Jerry Briscoe and more. This to me is the best idea and the best promotion Jerry Jarrett ever ran. It was a road to the gold. It was a battle of the century. Jerry Lawler and Jack Briscoe for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And it ended up shocking people. It was built so good and it had a hell of a house, 10,125 people. However, 5 or 6 weeks before against Fargo or Ricky Gibson or Bobo Brazil, it drew close to 12,000 people. This drew 10,125. What's fascinating, Michael, look at the ticket prices. $3, $4, $5, and $7. And I think all three of us will say those are cheap ticket prices. Do you guys agree?
For the time, the $7 ticket was an expensive ticket.
And that's what they blame on not selling out for. I heard Jim Cornette's podcast. He does great stuff about Memphis wrestling. 3, 4, 5, and 7 was just so much. And we'll take a look at that September 16th, 1974 card, 10,125 people. The opening match, to my knowledge, this may be George Goulas's first night wrestling at the Mid-South Coliseum. I'm not sure of that, but I think so. George Goulas against Big Jim Lancaster. Second match was Robert Fuller against Dennis Hall. The first match that I would have got me standing on my seat, and I wish today that certainly I could go back and see that, but there's not available. Lou Thez and Don Green was the third match on this card. Lou Thez, Don Green. Then Jackie Fargo and Tojo Yamamoto against the Bounty Hunters. A Southern Tag Team Championship. Al Green and Phil Hickerson wrestled to a no contest with Southern Tag Team champions Eddie Marlin and Tommy Gilbert. In the main event of the night was Jerry Lawler for the NWA World title, challenging Jack Briscoe. Lawler had Sam Bass in his corner. Jerry Briscoe was in Jack Briscoe. The battle of the century at the Mid-South Coliseum, and probably the greatest wrestling picture I have ever seen in my life. Lawler throwing, and that might have not been from this night. This might have been several years later, but Briscoe and Lawler. And
did Cornette take that photo?
Do what now?
Was that a Jimmy Cornette photo?
Absolutely not. That was before he started, way before he started coming to the matches. And we'll go ahead and put up just the Memphis Press Cemetery and the Memphis Appeal ad for that thing. And I just can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts on the road to the gold. Lawler and Jack Briscoe, memorable night. And we'll start with Michael St. John.
It was a memorable night, and they promoted. I mean, that was a culmination of about 3 months worth of promoting on TV and bringing the other participants in from all over the country. And and during that road to the goal, if I'm not correct, I may be wrong, but I don't think Lawler got a pin win over any of the people they brought in. There was always a DQ, a count out. There was something that I don't think any of the guys that came in, any of the big names that came in, did the honors for Jerry Lawler on that deal. I may be wrong, but as I recall it, and I was in Memphis at WMPS at the time. But I mean, that's a comment. But what a card! I mean, when you were reading that card, I would bet the Don Green Luthez match would have been a scientific match.
Oh yeah, you can bet your ass. Yes.
Because that was what Thez loved to do. And I'm telling you, the tag team match between Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin against Hickerson and Condrey, hell, that would have been worth the price of admission.
Oh, absolutely. The only matches that I wouldn't really cared anything about is George and Jim Lancaster, Robert Fuller and Dennis Hall. Then everything else, Thez and Green, Jackie and Tojo against the Bounty Hunters, and Al Green, Phil Hickerson, Eddie Marlin, Tommy Gilbert, and Lawler and Briscoe. It's just a tremendous card. And I wanted to skip to the comments because it's on the subject we're talking about. And we don't like to veer from the subject. William Robinson, Dr. William Robinson Rusty, was there for Briscoe and Lawler in 1974, and he asked a question, but didn't they make more money off that match because despite the lower attendance because of the higher prices? Absolutely. At that point, it was the biggest gate receipt in the history of Memphis wrestling. Without a doubt, it was. They were just, perception is reality. And, you had for some fans thinking, man, there was quite a few empty seats. That surprises me. You just get a buzz that works week after week after week, Michael, do from a sellout. You didn't get it, but certainly it was just tremendous stuff. So speak of that, I'll put you full sentence because Pat was kind of.
No, you're absolutely right. It's momentum building. In a sellout or something that just astronomically happening and everybody wants. I guarantee you, 3 times as many people were at that match between Lawler and Briscoe than were at that match, because people will say I was there. Well, they weren't there, but they were there. They're in their mind and their spirit. They were, which is cool. I mean, in this day and time, you get a lot of that, especially with these rock or these whatever music they call it concerts. But the Lawler Briscoe, that was the first big blowout card after it was the thing that just led to the whole Memphis aura, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That was the match that I think was the building block for the whole Memphis aura that followed it.
1974, Pat. Quick thoughts on that great card that we read, headlined by Briscoe Lawler.
That card has got everything. It's got history. It's got, obviously a world championship match. It's got everything else, and it's got tag. It's got legends. It's got everything. That is one of my favorite Lawler matches ever. And I've got a ton of respect. Jack Briscoe is as a wrestler, one of my top probably 3, maybe 2, maybe 1 world heavyweight champions. And I thought he brought out the absolute very best in Lawler in that match, and vice versa.
Pat, you make a great point there and I'm wondering, part of your vernacular, as you just said, was it's a great match and you hold it in high abeyance in your mind. But part of that is not only Lawler, but is Briscoe. And Briscoe, and I saw Briscoe and got to work with him one time. Jack Briscoe was a pretty quiet guy, but in the ring, he was magic. And I've heard, Sam Munchnick, I think the NWA would have kept the title on Jack a longer period of time, but Jack was wearing out. Jack's body was wearing out. Jack was mentally drained and physically just drained. And he was a low-key guy. I mean, he wasn't a high-energy kind of guy. When you look at Terry Funk and you look at Harley and you look at some of the other world champions, even Luthez, they were more out front and more, a type A personality. Where in meeting Briscoe was just a low key kind of guy, and I, like I said, met him and got to call one of his matches, and that's how I found him. He was a great wrestler, great worker in the ring, great technician, phenomenal amateur background, but he was just a normal kind of low key guy.
Yeah.
That's great. And to me, the credibility of the World Wrestling title being held by a NC2A wrestling champion, as it was with Jack Briscoe, I think it's absolutely tremendous. And I think he's a tremendous thing. Sometimes we'll do a list of favorite NWA world champions. I wish I would have seen more of Dory Funk Jr. Certainly, over the years, I'm certainly really high on Harley Race. I'm really high on Harley Race. I was high on Jack Briscoe as well. Terry Funk had a great run, and Tony, who is our resident historian, as we have a lot of historians. Jack Briscoe no-showed the 1975 NWA convention to get the point across that he was done with being the world champion, because that's when, guys, the world champion was the world champion, and
World.
be in Atlanta one night and be in Hong Kong the next. As Michael, I think you had comments.
But just real quick, I don't want to get away from what you just said, because I think you made a huge point just a few minutes ago. When the amateur champion, when the NCAA wrestling champion, heavyweight champion, is crowned, and then all of a sudden he gets into professional wrestling and comes out later as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, that's amazing credibility. I mean, that's just unbelievable credibility. So I think, there were several of them that held that, and I think that just added to the aura of what the NWA title was all about. If there's anything in my life that I wish I could change in wrestling, it would be that the NWA title went away. I would have loved to. And when I say went away, I know they still have it on, but I'm talking about what it meant and what it was. Because at one time, the NWA World Champion appearing on the Johnny Carson show was equivalent of Muhammad Ali appearing on the Johnny Carson show from the boxing world, or from, whoever the boxing champion was at the time. That it held that same credibility in the sports world. And I think we've lost that. I really do. We've got actors, if you would. They have the credibility of being great actors and being the champion, but I don't think we have that, NWA champion, NCAA champion. I mean, there's not that stage of credibility in this day and time, in my opinion.
And the last time I can think of like a UFC champion, certainly that got over in the mainstream was Brock Lesnar. Before that, as far as in a mainstream on a real competitive sport, it was Jack Briscoe, correct?
I think so, and I don't know as far as the what do you call the MMA kind of fighting. I don't think the MMA champion has ever gotten to the plateau of a Jack Briscoe or even a San Martino or a Luthez. I mean, there's to me, there's I couldn't tell you who the UFC champion is. I think they've got 452 different championships, but I couldn't tell you who the number one guy is. And with Lesnar, I think the thing that got Lesnar over wasn't the MMA, but the WWE. I didn't know Lesnar until he came into the WWE, and I'd heard him, I'd never seen his action, but I'd heard his name mentioned with OVW when he was in training. But I don't know. I just, Kurt Angle comes to mind. Kurt Angle was an amateur champion, but I mean, he never had the great cred of being a world heavyweight champion in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
All right. Talking Memphis wrestling. This is part one on our series, and we're going to put to bed right now. If Pat, do you want to follow up on on that night in September? Lawler and Briscoe, any final words for that before we do our last one of the day?
Well, we were kind of talking a little bit about the prestige and the work and all that of the NWA champions, and I agree with Michael. That's our sport has really lost something. An interesting thing you talked about the work they had to do. I heard in an interview Harley Race say that he wrestled in Atlanta and Tokyo within an 18-hour period one time. And
Oh yeah.
can you imagine that?
No.
I don't know. I'm not good at flying. I don't sleep on airplanes, but I don't know how you could ever do that.
I heard a comment just the other day, and I forget where I saw it or where I read it or where I heard it, but that Harley Race wrestled more 60-minute Broadway matches as champion than any other champion in the history of any sport. That he went Broadway in more matches as champion.
Sometimes 90 minutes.
True, and more than Funk, more than Flair, more than that. Harley went Broadway more than any other world heavyweight champion. That tells you something. And to wrestle in two continents in the same day, 18 hours is the same day.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. Hey, we started way back in 1971. Things were hopping, man. The first debut card of the Coliseum, starting in late 72, early 73, Jerry Lawler showed up. And Jerry Lawler and Jim White did all kinds of business, leading 73 to a great year. The road to the gold in 74, and that build up to that. And man, it popped from there. Jerry Jarrett, Nick Goulas, Promotional Award, 1977, the big split. Then, of course, great stuff in 78 with the Valiant debut. 79 was, of course, debut of Joe LeDuc. All kinds of stuff happened. And then in the year 1980, it went to hell. The reason it went to hell is a football game on a Sunday afternoon that Jerry Lawler broke his leg. Jerry Jarrett, man, went through a lot of tobacco during those times. He was a nervous wreck, but he made Jimmy Hart the key to the territory. It worked. Toward the end of the year, December 29th, 1980, was the return of the King. We showed that a few weeks ago, the King return. It's about a 7-minute video. I think it's very important to show that video. Just watch and listen to the crowd and the reaction of the crowd as Lawler returns for almost the first time in a year. We're going to watch that video and we'll come back, and I can tell you by now we're not going to get out of here exactly at 2 hours into the show, but it's not going to be as long as it's been the last few weeks. And this is part 1 of the series, and here's the match. Again, the video started like the other video started, with no audio. This is Jerry Lawler against the Dream Machine. This is a Return of the King from December 29th.
They won't bring him in, guy. Right, let me write it down so I don't forget it. Oh, that's right. NCAA.
Did you notice, Michael, the years, this is the case, no music for the hill?
Yeah, I noticed the seating configuration had moved it. The rest was still room on the apron on the guys
It's on.
rise move, so it's back, gave me a force.
PJ not no music for that guy, and maybe I would imagine that Waller is the only person all night that might have got music. Again, we showed this a few weeks ago, but I think it was important. That's an amazing shot. Copyrighted music right now, so you guys help me as I've muted the audio of this video. What do you guys think so far?
Incredible entrance.
Pat?
You know, and look, wrestling fans are passionate in Memphis, in Atlanta, in New York, in Jonesboro, in the Talladega High School gym, and the Oxford Civic Center. But I've never seen a crowd, that hot for their guy.
And remember, this is Dream Machine's second appearance at the Coliseum, first main event, and did a tremendous job. He's a big guy that could bump, that could move. Michael, how far in perception do you think Dream Machine is lower than he should be than what in reality he was? Because he was tremendous.
Troy was a good athlete to begin with, but also he could make a great promo. But then so could Jimmy Hart, and putting Hart with Dream may have taken a little shine off of Dream's abilities as a promo. But I agree with you. I think he probably deserves to be in a higher standing in the annals of Memphis wrestling history.
Well, I mean, look at that drop kick 30 seconds ago. Guy was 3 feet in the air, and what's he 6'4", 275?
Yes.
6'5"?
Yeah,
he's a big guy. Yeah, he's a big guy. There's the finish. Waller with the chain and healing up at the very end, and now he's going after Hart. The two ladies right behind them, are they twins? I've seen them at ringside in many of our film.
No, I don't think they are.
Mother-daughter,
they were sisters.
They were sisters, okay. Because I've seen them in quite a few of our film.
Tony Richards says this is a little off topic. Lawler's entrance music made me think of this, the 2001 Space Odyssey theme music of the Memphis TV show. And he asked when did they switch to the Dakota version of 2001 for the opening. And I really don't know the answer to that, Tony. I really don't know. Here comes the Dream Machine with a chair. The non-selling Lawler. People still. Lawler's facial impression is so much as certainly, Troy Graham, the Dream Machine, did Dusty Rhodes' personality in Knoxville, Tennessee, as Troy T. Tyler. I think. I think I'm accurate on that. Jerry Calhoun, my favorite referee of all time. Everybody certainly has a favorite, and we continue to have this brawl. And now we're filling up the ring, and we get out of that. And guys, I have a longer thing, and I don't know how I just got that up there. I have no idea. I'm trying to get rid of that.
Well, while you're doing that, Randy, let me make a quick comment here. As I watched that, and we watched it a few weeks ago, you really see Jackie Fargo and Jerry Lawler. I mean, when you're watching Lawler work, and especially like in that particular match at this particular point of his career, you really see Fargo in his work. And I think that is something that, and again, it's just something as I was watching the match, I'm thinking, damn, that I've seen Fargo do that. Dang, I've seen Fargo do that, and there's a lot of Jackie in Jerry Lawler. As matches go, and I don't want to be a spoil sport here, but I think that match is significant because it's Jerry Lawler's return. I don't think it's the greatest matches in Memphis history.
Say that again.
I think that match is important and has a place in Memphis history because it's Lawler's return from could have been a catastrophic injury or a career-ending injury. I think it's important for that match that's where it stays in its history. I don't think that's one of the top 10 matches in Memphis wrestling history.
Because of the significance as Lawler returned, we're looking at top 10, what will eventually, and I don't have my number one picked yet, but what we're eventually working toward the number one night card of Memphis wrestling and return of Lawler. And again, I'm not saying this is my number one. I'm not saying this at all. But the significance of it is just fantastic. I think. And finally, I got that thing out of there. And I have a fly that's flying around as well. What did you think about that situation, Pat?
I mean, I think it's just the continuance of the building Lawler, and I agree with Michael. It's not Troy Graham was at that point in time was a physical and athletic specimen, and somebody really good for him to for Lawler to his comeback with. It wasn't Dundee level stuff and Lawler stuff, obviously, but it got him over, and I agree. You can see a lot of Jackie Fargo in that.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And here's what I want the audience to do, and I'm just asking for a number one of what we've covered today. And you guys, Michael and Pat, you listen, and Randy West, don't tell me it's a good show. I'm telling you, it was a great show, and it was all because of you, without a doubt. We are going to decide of what we covered today and we're all going to say that the biggest night Memphis wrestling history. The first one we talked about was August the 17th of 1959. Billy Wicks and Sputnik Monroe. Billy Wicks and uh, Sputnik Monroe drew tickets sold 13,749 people, 20,000 people total because people broke in. So that was fantastic. June 7th, 1971 started the Mid-South Coliseum era. That was in 1971. The Greens against Jarrett and Tojo in the main event. The Fargo Lawler, the Fargo Al Green first sellout, August the 8th, 1972. And I wanted to add that after that, 10,653 sellout with Al Green and Jackie Fargo. The next week drew 8,800 people. The week after that, Fargo and Al Green did 10,855. The next week after that did 10,815. So we talked about that. September 16th, 1974, the first Lawler Briscoe match, and that was so important. And the final match we saw on the show today was Lawler's return, Dream Machine. Pat, what was your number one?
Uh, well, in what I enjoyed, what I'd like to watch several times, versus historic importance, I would say Lawler Briscoe.
Very
I'm
useful.
really a big fan of that match.
And I want our audience in the comments to say of everything we saw today what you saw. Michael, I certainly will put you full screen, and I want you to, of everything we saw tonight, what you thought.
Well, in perspective, first of all, I think Pat's right. I think in perspective, I would agree with him. That's my favorite match. Now, no doubt about it. But we don't have video on Wicks and Monroe, and that was significant. And that's the biggest crowd to the history of his Memphis wrestling to that point to ever see a wrestling match, to our knowledge. Now, we can't go back into the 40s and the 30s, and there was some significance in those days and times. And God rest her soul, I wish at this point in time we could get Mae Young on here to tell us, because she was part of it back in those days. And there may have been some crowds of 20, 25, 30,000 people back then that we're just not aware of. So, but of what we saw tonight, significantly, when let's just put it down, we're wanting to look at the best matches in Memphis history, wrestling matches, without a doubt, Lawler Briscoe.
And, best matches / best nights of Memphis wrestling. And in that era, the main event is what drew the crowd. And I'm, as Richard Hood says, Lawler Briscoe for me. I'd have to go with the match that made me a wrestling fan. I'm going to have to go, again, the Sputnik Billy Wicks match was before I was born, several years before I was born. I have to go with Jackie Fargo and Al Green, because I don't think the Randy Hill story, no telling what I'd be doing. I don't know if I'd be alive. I think my vote for the best we've seen tonight would be Jackie Fargo and Al Green hair match. Pat, are you saying what?
Hmm?
What was your vote?
Lawler Briscoe.
And Michael?
Same way, Lawler Briscoe, because of the historical significance and the quality of the match. And Fargo and Green, that's a hair versus hair. That was sort of a gimmick match. It was a brawl, and I'm sure it was a great match. But to me, I agree with Pat. I think in the building blocks of Memphis history, when we're looking for the Mount Rushmore of Memphis wrestling matches, I think I think Briscoe and Lawler deserves to be on that mountain.
Truth be told, though, I'd probably, if you give me one more day on this earth and you can go see one of these five, I'd probably go see Fargo Al Green.
King of Kingsport answered Tony's question. The music changed in 1985, and Tony also says Memphis never drew any crowds like that prior to 1959, before Buddy Fuller came in Thanksgiving of 1958. Before that, Memphis was a hard time. A couple of business that I wanted to get through so we know what to look forward to coming up. There will not be a show next Tuesday night. Dark Side of the Ring was a two-part feature, 2-hour feature on Jeff Jarrett. Will be next Tuesday night on Vice TV that I'm going to watch on Tubi TV, and I encourage you guys to watch Dark Side of the Ring, and then our show will move to Wednesday, and in that show on Wednesday, we will start the show with a review of that series, and then we will continue our look as we look at all these great nights, and to give you an idea of some of the other ones that we're going to talk about. Certainly, we're going to talk about April the 5th, 1982. From 1982, that drew 8,100 people. The main event was the first match the two ever had. It went 6 minutes and 50 seconds long. Andy Kaufman defeated Jerry Lawler by disqualification. Then, even though no tickets were sold, this one's more of a great event than a great night, because it was taped in the middle of the night, middle of the afternoon. I think we have to talk about the empty Coliseum match. I think the June the 7th, Chris Ellis sent me a tape. The June the 6th, 1983, Lawler Dundee loser leave town. April 27th, 1987, double cage match. Jeff Jarrett against Pat Tanaka, and the hair versus hair with Lawler and Idol. The May 9th, 1988, 8,000 people saw Lawler win the AWA World Title from Kurt Hennig, and that was tremendous as well. So that and much more. Do either one of you guys? We'll start with you, Pat. Certainly, I knew I wouldn't get through that, so I hadn't put a lot of time in it. Any other ideas for big nights that you can think of right off the top of your head?
Not the top of my head, but I certainly want to. And some of them are big nights for me. I don't know if they're big nights in the cultural history of wrestling. Tommy Rich under the ring comes to mind.
And we mentioned that one.
Okay,
that was the cage match, hair versus hair.
Okay, okay, I missed that. Laura Idol. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Certainly. Again, going back to my youth, I have to say, so far, Fargo, and that might change because I'm a little biased toward, once I started booking some of the bigger events. Of course, a big part of me, and that's important too. So any thoughts, Michael, on anything that I left out?
Well, I think there were some matches as we go on into the history. I think there was a couple of matches that Eddie Gilbert was involved in that might need to be considered in this run that we're doing. The other thing you were mentioning, the thing with Jeff, with TNA and the Dark Side of the Ring, and the 3-parter on Jimmy, or on Jeff. They dropped the trailer on that, I think over the weekend, and it's a 3-minute trailer on the first episode, and it's enticing. And I was wondering how they were going to get into this, and it's really, if you saw the trailer, and Pat, you've seen it, so you know what I'm talking about. I sort of wish it was tonight. I mean, that's how excited I am about it now.
Yeah, me too.
Last take, Pat Trammell. What did you think about the show? What did you learn about the show? And what are you looking forward to coming up? And remember, no show next Tuesday. We'll be back on Wednesday and have a lot to accomplish there. And I love this series for sure. Your thoughts on the show tonight?
Well, I mean, as I think, we've discussed many times. I love my history, and I love my history of wrestling and Memphis wrestling, and I appreciated the opportunity tonight to kind of talk about how the territory and the business evolved from the the big match at the park into the Cook Convention Center into the Mid South Coliseum, and I think that just has given me a kind of a good perspective of what we're kind of what it kind of is building and growing to, and I look forward to us continuing this series of shows.
Michael?
I agree with Pat. And I love the chronological. I think you made a wonderful decision in going chronological with this thing. And I think the best matches are yet to come. I mean, I really feel that way. The best matches are yet to come. But this was a great idea. I want to thank Randy for coming up with this, and Randy Hales for putting this together, as he always does a great job. He's a booker, for gosh sakes. I mean, he does a great job booking, as he does on this show. But Pat, I love history, as you well know. I'm a student of history in a lot of different realms of life. And I think the more we delve into the history of Memphis wrestling, I think we're going to rediscover why the rest of the world is just now discovering what Memphis wrestling is all about. And Memphis wrestling is just now getting its platitudes on the world stage that it has gotten for years in our territory.
Well said.
Thank you, guys. Y'all did great. We missed Adam tonight, but our audience really loved the show. A lot of participation with the comments, and I can't get up to all of them, and I apologize for that. And everybody, for the most part, stuck with the subject. We appreciate both for dropping in with some information. Tony Richards, we appreciate PJ and every single solitary soul, because if there was no interest from them, there'd be no interest in us and no motivation for us. Because I usually go to bed at 7 o'clock, because I got up this morning at 2:30 and I had a Memphis ride to the airport to take my niece, and then I got back home in time to go back to Memphis again with another Uber ride. So this is a long night for me, and I appreciate every one of them. I'm going to go ahead. Final last words before you say goodbye, Pat Trammell.
See you next week. It's getting better and better as we go along.
Final last words for Michael St. John of the night.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys. And Pat, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Randy, thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this. It means you guys don't know it. Well, Pat, I'm sure you can understand. Randy, I'm sure you can too. You get so involved in your life, in your career, in your world, that you need an escape. And I've never been one for drugs, and I've never been one for drinking, and I've never been one for doing any crazy stuff. But I love this opportunity because it gives me a couple hours or so on a Tuesday night to go, whoa, there's another world out there. And it's a wonderful world of wrestling. And what makes it special are the people watching. And I had a person come up to me at Friday night at Bo's event and mention and jumps on the show or watches the show and said they really enjoyed it and thanked me for my participation. But I want to thank you guys because it's important. But let me tell you the thing that I think is most important to say tonight. And that is that this wonderful country that we live in that allows you and me and Pat and all of our listeners and people to watch the opportunity to do this for 250 years. That's a quarter of, what is 1,000 years? A
Millennium.
Yes. For a quarter of a millennium, this country has allowed us to express ourselves. Do we have disagreements? Yes. Do we like everything that goes on in this country? No. But over the past weeks, one of the things that has been very eye-opening to me at my latter years here is so many people, young people from different parts of the world are in this country now for a sporting event. And they are all getting on the internet. And I know it's on every platform, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. and how much they are saying how much they love America because they've had heard that, we're bad guys. And they get over here and they discover things in America that are only part of America, i.e. Buc-ee's and other things like that. I think for us to sit back and think that we have been as a country around for 250 years, and all the people that have made this country what it is before us, not only the sacrifice of our soldiers and our military, but our people that have led our government, people that have led our local governments, the people that have helped other people along the way. I think this is just a moment just to sit back over this next few days and thank God, number one, and reflect on what a wonderful place that we live in the world today. And I pray hard that this little guy that's been in here 2 or 3 times tonight and his young sister get to say what I'm saying when they're my age. Because the world changes. My papa used to say, he used to tell me when I was a little boy, he said, the world changes every 100 years. And he's right. I've been here 3/4 of that, and he's right. The world changes every 100 years. But one thing that has stayed the same is we live in the greatest country perhaps ever in the history of the world. And sometimes we just don't think and thank enough for it. So if anything, for all the folks that are watching and listening, let's just sit back and enjoy and thank God that we live in the world we live in the United States of America, despite all of our problems and despite all of our nitpicky kind of things, we're still the greatest country on earth. And thank God for that. And I thank God for you guys.
Now, my last take was going to be just that, in talking about 250 years of this country. Folks, don't have no darn firework blow up in your face. Don't be out there. I'm going to be Uncle Randy here. Don't be out there drinking and driving. Be careful with your fireworks. Be careful with the kids doing fireworks, and be with us a week from tomorrow. On Wednesday, we'll talk about a story that will probably, a dark side of the ring on Vice TV, make us cry. We will talk about that next week and do part 2 of the greatest night of Memphis wrestling. For Michael St. John and Pat Trammell, I'm Randy Hills. We missed Adam Dunn, and we thank each and every one of you for watching this show. Until next Wednesday, Randy Hills saying bye-bye, everybody, for talking Memphis wrestling.
You'll see America's favorite sport on WHBQ television.